This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. The answer to who the Edmonton Oilers goaltender opposite Mikko Koskinen for 2021 will be is A. Mike Smith, B. Mike Smith, C. Mike Smith, D. All of the above. And I'm going to take on all of the above. Mike Smith returns to the Edmonton Oilers for a $2 million 1 year deal. And at the end of the day, is this the worst thing in the world? No. Could have we done better? Yes. But here you go. End of the day, you look at what Mike Smith brought to the table for the Oilers this past season. He didn't fully sink us. Probably in the playoffs after Game 1 performance he did. But I think it's summed up here by @Drysaddle on Twitter. The guy I follow in the Oilers community is just, well, that's a bummer. It is a bummer, right? We had expectations. We were going to go out and get another goalie to complement Mikko Koskinen and really get it going. But I think this signals the Oilers aren't looking for the 1A, 1B situation with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen next year. This signals Mikko Koskinen is probably a 50 to 55 game starter for the Edmonton Oilers in 2019-2020 on a Mike Smith 2 year deal or $2 million 1 year deal. It's right similar to what he had last year, except for last year he had performance bonuses. I haven't seen anything mentioned about that. But you look at the numbers for Mike Smith, here's the reason you end up backing him up to a little bit closer to probably 30 to 35 games started. And of course, you do have to worry about injury. We did see Mike Smith struggle through a couple little just tweaks in a couple games this year, so something to keep in mind with Anton Forsberg being down there as the organizational 3 goalie as well. Ryan Rishaug 9 seconds ago has this tweet: Smith 902 save percentage and a 295 goals against average, while Mikko Koskinen had a 917 and 275 goals against average. Oilers stand pat in net, according to Rishaug, returning the tandem that battled hard and played well in the regular season but stalled in the play-in round, missing out on Markstrom, Lands, and Barrie, and the goaltenders get a do-over. So here's the thing. You can talk about it being a bummer for the Edmonton Oilers in terms of signing Mike Smith again, but at the end of the day, with the cap space situation we find ourselves in, putting Clefbaum on the LTIR, we still have a total of just about $2 million left in cap space. So that is huge for the Edmonton Oilers come time to activate Clefbaum onto the LTIR and get the job done. So looking at it this way, though, I would theorize that it looks like the Oilers will probably have Clefbaum on the LTIR all season long. But for Mike Smith, that's really irrelevant. But for the Oilers cap space, it is major. So guys, if you're new to the channel right now, I'm going to take a second. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, guys, because we got a long off season to go and we'll have lots of fun content. But Mike Smith and the Edmonton Oilers back together for another go around again, and everything just getting going. So obviously, yeah, you know what? Let's talk about it. I'm trying to dance around it and avoid it. There are probably going to be 90% of Oilers fans very upset the Oilers end up signing Mike Smith. But when it comes back around to reality, if we look at it all the way around, every situation from Holtby to Markstrom to Dell to Howard to a guy like Grice now in Detroit, you look at those options, Anton Hudobin, you look at Darcy Kemper, you ask yourself, okay, what was the most likely scenario with the Edmonton Oilers goaltending situation? All along, it always was put back into us that Mike Smith is very likely to return. Mike Smith is very likely to return. So we had our hopes and dreams elsewhere, while reality more or less was saying something else. So this is one of those where you can't really be upset at the situation because it was there all along, and we just refused to see it for what it was, being an actual serious actual possibility. So it's tough. But Mike Smith, I think, you know what, end of the day is, like I said, the key is Mikko Koskinen is now your starter. He is going to start 50 to 55 games, and you're going to let him ride. That's the big thing. You let Mike Smith play that 28 to 30 game sweet spot, get you a couple of starts, let Anton Forsberg get up or Stuart Skinner get up for a couple of games if you get comfy towards the end of the season. And realistically, here's the thing. If the Oilers find themselves in this COVID reality come January 1st, which it very much so looks like we still will when the season hopefully starts next year, is the fact that we will probably end up carrying 3 goaltenders and an extra player and this or that or the other thing just to kind of have that security in the roster in case anything happens. So why wouldn't you end up having a Forsberg or a Stuart Skinner in the system ready to go on that third role to get the job done, and then you kind of platoon that situation and allow maybe a guy like Stuart Skinner to get in there and grow under a Mike Smith, who's been a very valuable goaltender to a lot of teams in the NHL over the course of his career. So for the Oilers, this is, like I said, not worst case scenario. I think Hoser there on Twitter put it beautifully. It's a bummer. Yes, it's an absolute bummer for the Oilers and the Oilers fans because we had high expectations and high hopes. But end of the day, you know what? Holland's had a pretty good week here all of a sudden. We are still the Oilers, and we still find ways to cut corners occasionally, no matter who the GM is. And this is a cut the corner kind of deal. Bring back a goaltender that was serviceable. I'm not saying great, not saying good, serviceable. Cost us as much as he helped us, so serviceable, okay is another word you could throw. And you end up now having to figure out what the next steps with Mikko Koskinen is. And Mikko Koskinen's still here for the next 2 years. Unless there's some kind of big trade brewing, you'd have to imagine Mike Smith is going to be a platoon guy with the Mikko Koskinen situation, evolving him into the starter full-time. Finally, after 2 years of Mikko Koskinen, we're actually going to get him into a starter role. And here's the thing. I mean, at Draisaitl's just absolutely killing it with tweets here. And live with the Koskinen-Smith tandem for one more season, but not ecstatic about it. And then at least we didn't sign Jimmy Howard. I think that's, end of the day, Mike Smith is here. Jimmy Howard was about here on our list of who we wanted. So that's the thing. You know what? At least we didn't go full Oilers, full Ken Holland screw job and sign Jimmy Howard. I guess that's how you can look at this. There is some light in the darkness if you're not a fan of Mike Smith. And end of the day, you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world. It was a tandem that got us to second in the Pacific Division. It's a tandem that survived a terrible Oilers defense at times. It's a tandem that almost did good enough to beat the Blackhawks, despite the Oilers defense crapping themselves every shift on the ice for 4 straight games. But you know what? We're going to end up always blaming the goalies in Edmonton. That's the way it goes. So Mike Smith, hopefully he's ready for another season of getting blamed for things that aren't necessarily his fault. But hey, you know what? I'm guilty of that too, so I can't sit here and exactly talk about it like I'm what's the word? Not guilty? Not guilty of it too? Yeah. I can't talk like I'm not guilty of blaming Mike Smith for problems that aren't really his either. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now because the Oilers are technically $1.5 million over the cap space. So you got to go Jujhar Khaira, you got to go Alex Chiasson, you got to go somebody. Chris Russell, Adam Larson has to be moved out at this point to make things work, unless we go full Clefbaum to the LTIR. But even still, you'd probably want to move out a guy like Alex Chiasson to have that little bit of wiggle room, sign one more $700,000 player, and we are done in free agency, good to go unless a big trade presents itself. But ladies and gentlemen, it has been a heck of a past 2 days for the Edmonton Oilers. Things are secured. We have the backup. We have our new defenseman. We have our third-line centerman. And the Oilers still have that ability to have a homegrown talent solve an issue, whether it be Tyler Benson, whether it be Caleb Jones, or whether it be in some kind of weird 3-goalie situation, Stuart Skinner. So guys, a very interesting 2 days, and it hopefully will continue throughout the next 2.5 months, because let me tell you, NHL 21 isn't going to be near as interesting as having Edmonton Oilers news every day, and that's my backup option if we have to go that route. So let's keep the Oilers news going. Let's keep this discussion happening. We now have what an Oilers roster could look like. Look for the full lineup preview to come out tomorrow on Thanksgiving Sunday. Is it Thanksgiving Monday? Which do you observe? I'm doing turkey dinner, prime rib dinner tonight over at my aunt's house, so right? Saturday? Sunday? Monday? Did you do it Friday? I heard people were doing it last night. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, that's up for you to decide. I will catch you a little bit later on. I'm Tyson Dolynny TV, up on out of here.